Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/Malicious Compliance. In today's episode, entire class skips optional early start to lab. We were given an hour for lunch and we're going to take all of our time. Thousands of euro for the damaged car. Won't give me a raise? I will claim all the overtime I can then. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Entire class skips optional early start to lab. We were given an hour for lunch and we're going to take all of our time. I'm a second-year veterinary student. This is the time when we start our live surgery labs. We work in teams of 3 students, a surgeon, an assistant, an anesthetist, and are obviously overseen by certified specialists, anesthesiologists and surgeons, and many experienced vet nurses as well. We have lectures 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. Lunch is 11 to 12. Our lab begins at 12 p.m. sharp. However, we were told we have the option to come to lab early and begin. It became very clear after the first week this is an expectation, not an option, that we will skip lunch or eat during lecture and come straight to the OR. During one lab, at 11:50 a.m. the anesthesiologist yelled at a student for a few minutes in the pharmacy area while getting drugs for lab, for not having his patient ready and waiting in the induction room. 10 minutes for lab even begins. And this group was set to induce during the last wave, normally 1 to 1.5 plus hours in the lab. There's no reason to be an hour early when your group is final wave, being on time is sufficient, and they were actually still early. Our class has been getting berated by this anesthesiologist as well as some of the surgeons in this lab. Just as one example, a student surgeon asked for help. A surgical resident came over from another patient to help, and she was now not sterile. The resident told the student she was holding her forceps wrong, proceeded to grab them from her hands, and then made the student leave her patient on the table to re-scrub, re-gown, and re-glove, and open a new instrument pack. All because she wanted to ask a question. This is a common technique they will use on us when we've done something incorrect to get us to remember it next time. Well, the entire class is fed up with this. Our class called a meeting about it, and we all decided we are all going to start showing up to lab at 11:50 to 11:55 a.m. Only 5 to 10 minutes early. Not for petty reasons either, but it's a matter of patient safety as well. Several students have fainted from skipping lunch to go and operate instead. We were given 11 to 12 for lunch and we're going to take all of our time. So, that's what we did. At 11:40 a.m. one of the surgeons came to our lecture hall, where the majority of us stay and eat lunch, and asked us why we're not in lab yet. A student at the front of the room said simply, "Lab begins at 12 noon. The surgeon gave us a long spell about professionalism and how we are being inappropriate and putting our patients at risk, and she left. The OR is a 2-minute walk from the lecture hall, so we finished lunch and all showed up around 11:55. The clinicians were very mad about it, and reported our class to the dean, and so the dean called a school-wide meeting about it. Some of our classmates spoke eloquently about our reasons and our actual patient safety concern, turning it right back on the clinicians, citing patient safety. And the school claims to care immensely about student mental health, since this profession has one of the highest suicide rates, and our own class even suffered a loss, and cutting our break/lunch is no way to support us. Beyond that, the schedule says we begin at 12, and we are still showing up a few minutes early to ensure we can begin right at 12. Ultimately, the dean just released a statement saying they cannot force us to begin lab an hour early, and we will start at 12 when the dean's office scheduled lab to begin. It's a small win for us. Certainly we will face backlash, but we have a break to eat at least. Our class is known for not putting up with BS from the school. We got a dinosaur of a professor fired for racist comments she made to a student in the middle of lecture. After she had terrorized students at this school for decades, she forgot out lectures were automatically recorded on Zoom during COVID. We're hated by the clinicians, but at least the classes behind us are having a slightly better time. Edit. About the fainting thing. Yes, from skipping a single meal, most healthy adults shouldn't faint. Add on top of that the mental stress of operating for the first few times, the heat from the surgical lights, being covered head to toe in a non-breathable sterile barrier which traps in your body heat, a mask putting that heat back on your face, having to stand relatively still in one place for hours, no access to water for hours, you can't move your arms out of the sterile field, so limited/no stretching, plus the sight of blood being a common trigger of vasovagal syncope, and you have plenty of lightheaded or fainting students. Skipping food is added insult to injury. When you last ate at 6 a.m., it's now 4 p.m., you haven't had water since noon, and you're overheating and stressed. Not to mention vet school is a concentration of type A high-achieving perfectionists with chronic stress from constant high-stakes exams, failure out of the program, some of which are right before you go off into operating or maybe occurring the next day, rampant anxiety and depression, sleep deprivation from our schedule and or insomnia. I know several classmates with disordered eating or full-blown EDs. It's not merely an isolated incident of skipping lunch one time. Thousands of euro for the damaged car. In my home country, living abroad now, the gas station have people who will your tank for you. It's not optional. These people are paid to put fuel in your tank. That's it. I was one of them during my college years. The fuel we had at the station was unleaded Benson 95, 98, and 100. And diesel. One day, a regular customer came over. He was a taxi driver. I had seen him before, both with his taxi car, a Mercedes, and his private car, an Audi. The Mercedes was a diesel car and the Audi was Benson. Keep in mind, back then, every taxi in the country was running with diesel. That day, he came with the taxi. I've noticed he was a bit out of it but didn't comment on it. I asked how much he wants in the tank. He said, full, unleaded 100. I looked at him strangely. You mean, diesel? No, I mean unleaded 100. But sir, you have the... I didn't get the chance to point out he was driving his taxi. He goes, young girl, please. I know what fuel my car needs. I looked at him one more time. I was getting pissed at that point. Okay sir, full tank unleaded 100. Is that correct? Yes, thank you. Right away. And I proceed to put unleaded 100 in his diesel car. He paid and left. 2 days later, he comes again on my shift with his Audi this time. I go out to greet him, trying not to laugh at his face. What it's gonna be today, sir? Diesel? I asked, trying to bite my tongue. He eyed me carefully. Unleaded 100, please. Full tank, are you sure? I asked, and he side-checked his car. Yes, thank you. Right away, sir. I fill his tank, and as he was paying he adds, next time, I would appreciate it if you told me I was being an idiot and put in the correct gas on the tank. He said seriously, but I could see the humor in his eyes. Was the damage that much? I asked. He groaned. You have no idea. Have a good day. And he left. I never found out what was the cost of the damage, but for my duration at that gas station, when I was the one loading his car, he always would go like, full tank, please. Without saying what kind. Won't give me a raise? I will claim all the overtime I can then. Many years ago, I worked in the control room of a private ambulance company. I was working overnight, which meant I never really saw a manager and had to do everything on my own. Literally, I would be the only one in the office. Then the company won some new contracts, and all of a sudden I had actual coworkers. But very quickly, I found out they were earning more than me, about £1,000 per year difference. And there were two of them doing about 2/3 of the work I was doing alone. So I did what anyone would do and asked if I could get a pay bump to match my new colleagues, only to be told no. So instead, I went and looked closely at my contract, which stated I was only paid for 11 hours a night, with the expectation of an unpaid hour for the overnight approximation of lunch. But you see, dear reader, I had been working for a full 12 hours, because I had no one to cover me, and technically I still didn't because different contracts and areas of operation. So I looked up the overtime policy and the forms. I printed off a stack and filled them in to cover my entire shift pattern, and claimed for my hours lunch that I couldn't take. Then I made sure they were submitted every week to get my extra pay. Eventually they gave me my raise, but I carried on claiming until they hired someone to work with me and I couldn't claim anymore. But the damage was done, and the crappy manager that couldn't understand why I wanted equal pay for an equal job moved on. It still makes me smile to think how much money I must have cost them for trying to screw me over. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.